Children who grew up in abusive households, at what point did things go too far? I grew up in a remote village in Africa. My father would force us children to stay home with my mother and help with chores while he went out to make money. This changed when American missionaries came and opened a school for the local children. The village men and elders hated this because it meant all the kids would have to leave their homesteads to attend school, leaving all the chores undone for the day. On the other hand, my mother was overjoyed with the idea. She had heard stories from other women whose sons had attended school and how successful they had become later in life. My father was furious. He liked coming home to a fully clean house and hated seeing uncompleted chores. It became an uphill battle for my mother about the importance of school for me, instead of taking care of the garden and farm. They were always arguing about how this education was getting in the way of more important things, like grazing the cattle and goats. My father always went on and on about how the cows were getting thinner and producing less milk because there was no one to feed them properly. After a miserable year of coming home to the constant bickering of my parents, my father decided to put an end to it. He ordered me to bring all the books I had, as well as my uniform, to him. He wrapped them all together with the books and threw them into the fire. He then forced me to go take the bulls out to the fields just beside the school. It was a mockery. He wanted me to see the other kids in school, sitting in class, learning. He tried to convince me how useless sitting there was. I was beyond hurt. I felt that my father was holding me back from reaching my potential. I cried on the way home. Later that evening, my mother discovered what my father had done. She was incredibly upset. I had never seen my mother this angry in my entire life. For the first time in her life, she physically attacked my dad. It proved to be of no use. My father was too strong for her. She was severely beaten and kicked out. I remember seeing her face. She had a busted lip that was seeping blood. A patch of her hair had been pulled out, and there were blood-gushing cuts on her neck. A few days later, she was brought back by her parents. They instructed her to never repeat what she had done, or else she would be kicked out for good. My grandparents also threatened to abandon her if it were to happen again. Things went back to how they were before. I was back to herding livestock and plowing the farms. I was beyond depressed, watching other kids in my town get the privilege of going to school. While they